With me today is entrepreneur, business owner, father, and husband Colin Thompson. Colin emigrated from China to the United States at an early age before ending up in Shanghai, China, where he's been throughout the whole COVID-19 pandemic. Welcome, Colin, and thanks for joining me today.
Hey, Christy, thank you. And let me just say, I immigrated from Canada and the U.S. to China.
Yes.
if you can see me and see my picture, I don't look Chinese, so I didn't start in China, but I'm in China now.
And we'll talk about that in a second, Colin. Now, you have such a great life story to share with many challenges and success. So let's start at the beginning. How old were you when you moved from Canada to the United States?
Well, the first time, I think I was about 3 or 4 years old, and then we went back to Canada. And the final time we went from Canada to the U.S., I was 8 years old, well, 7.5 years old, almost 8 years old.
So that's pretty young. So how did you have brothers and sisters?
Oh, wow. I have 3 older sisters and 2 older brothers.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, a nice big family. And my wife actually has 6 siblings. So between my wife and I, we have a lot of family. But it was I can say that one of the first real memories I have is that final move from Canada to the U.S. because it was just really, I don't want to say life-changing, but literally it changed my life. It was very life-changing.
So why do you think you had that feeling at such a young age? Did you just know deep down that something was going to happen with your family and your life? Or was it a bit of trepidation? You weren't sure what was going to happen?
Well, to be honest with you, Christy, it was the first time my father sat us down and had a certain conversation with us. And that conversation was pretty much, look, you're in the U.S. now, you're Black, here are the rules in the U.S. And in Canada, there was no ever discussion, now again, I'm young, so maybe I didn't need to have that discussion, but the very moment we got into the U.S., it was very, very different. And having that conversation, telling us, we moved to a neighborhood, we were one of 2 Black families in probably a neighborhood of maybe 100, 110 homes.
Wow.
So it was very, 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 very different. Whereas we had one Jewish neighbor on one side, an Italian neighbor on the other side. And I can tell you, in living there in 10 years, I never stepped into one neighbor's home. And I remember the other neighbor telling us, this is the last time you're really going to be, invited over to our house and pool. So it was very, very different life going to the United States.
Wow. So, as an adult, why do you think that is? Why do you think Canada and the United States are so different?
Slavery. Slavery. I'm not sure what angle you want to take for the podcast, but I'm going to tell you.
Just the truth.
Yeah, the slavery.
Yeah.
Now, I would say slavery, and let me say this the right way. In the U.S., white guilt, and white guilt can serve in 2 ways. The one way, it can be for understanding and learning. A lot of the Caucasians in the U.S. now, they didn't start slavery. And they want to really, especially now in 2021, they want to understand, they want to be an ally to people of color. And they really want to help get past some of these obstacles that have been put in place. The other side, though, they really don't like the guilt. The guilt makes them feel challenged. The guilt makes them feel like we must do something. So I can tell you that part of the guilt people feel is they want to push back and not be an ally. So there are several different reasons why why the situation in the U.S. back in the 80s and even now is what it is.
So tell me a little bit about sort of growing up in that sort of environment when you weren't invited to, the neighbours' houses and things like that. As a young kid, how did you deal with that?
Well, I think after a while, you just get used to it.
That's
You
sad.
just, you just. It's not sad.
I think it's sad.
It's sad. It's sad. For example, now you can look and you see these issues where you have these corporations that have no people of color on the boards. You have what they're saying now. Yes, we had a program here where we were not as diverse as we stated we wanted to be. So when you grow up in that environment all your life, you get used to it. You just learn how to go forward and make it. And that's why a lot of people of color, I'm sorry, a lot of black people are very strong because we've had to go through these barriers. So it's not that you see it every day and you say, "Oh gosh, another day of this." No, man, you just go through it. And I think we talk about building a business, building a life, whatever it is. You just get stronger and you stop noticing the issues. I mean, you're a woman. And I'll say this: I know that this is the go back 2, 3 years ago, the Me Too movement. A lot of women have went through, not even in a work environment, but just in life, have also had to deal with a lot of BS. And if you say how you do it, Chrissy, I'm sure you'll say you get used to it,
You just
right?
do it.
And you
Yeah,
get
that's it.
yeah.
Mm. Yeah, no, that's a very good perspective and way to sort of look at it, Colin, because I haven't ever really thought about it like that. And speaking about sort of overcoming adversity and strength and challenges, I wanted to ask you about your education experience because you went from being in special education classes to providing the commencement speech at your college graduation. So, how did that happen?
Well, I think it happened because, and it goes back to your question earlier about going from Canada to the U.S. When I moved from Canada to the U.S., my family's Jamaican, and if so Jamaican, we have an accent. My parents had an accent, and going from Jamaica to Canada to the U.S. and going to Kentucky, so the state of Kentucky, it's not southern, but it's southern. So you have an accent. And when I moved there, I didn't talk like other people talked. My parents didn't talk like other people talked. And back in the early 80s, when my parents arrived in Kentucky with their Jamaican accent, I don't think they've ever met anybody from Jamaica. So with that, I was put into special English classes because I had a Canadian accent. And again, they weren't used to somebody from Canada. So going from being a very open guy to being told that I did not know how to speak correctly, I got very, very shy. I developed a stutter. I have a lisp. I still have my lisp. I still have my stutter at times. So they put me in special classes to help me to understand American English. And once they did that, I really started looking at and focusing on people who could speak what I call graciously. And it was first in church. You see a preacher up there in front of hundreds of people speaking and people being moved by what they said. So I really started appreciating people who could speak in public. So public speaking became my thing. And it's funny because I became a waiter in high school. And I learned two things. If you can, when people come to eat at a restaurant, you have about 3 minutes to make that impression. And the better impression you make, the more money you make.
That's so true.
So I
Yeah.
learned how to talk to people to make them feel comfortable and make them feel good. And that was very, very important because in a restaurant, you have people coming that are very diverse. You have white, black. Back then, you had Asians, a few Asians in Kentucky, white, primarily white and black. And if you can talk the money out of their pocket, you are very, very good. So I learned how to talk to people, and I learned how to speak in public. And when I graduated, when I went to Howard University, and Howard University is a HBCU, a historically black college university. I want to say now, in 2021, it's also the university of our first first female vice president. Okay,
Wow.
Kamala Harris. She also went to Howard University. So Howard is an academic school, and the only reason I got into Howard was because I was a great athlete. Still am actually a great athlete. But I got there on a wrestling scholarship, and I remember them telling me, "Well, you know what? Your grades are so low. We have to do an extra review on your application." And the only reason I got in again was because the wrestling coach wanted me to come to school. And now I'll say this: all of my siblings, I have three older sisters and two older brothers. They all went to Howard also. So Howard is a school for a lot of Caribbean students. A lot of black students want to go because it's a black school. So luckily I got in, and I was senior class president for the School of Business my final year. And due to me being senior class president, I did the commencement speech for School of Business, and it was tremendous. The only regret I have is I don't have it on tape.
Oh, how
Yeah,
disappointing. That would
yeah.
have been something fantastic to show your children.
Well, you know what? It's interesting because I have so much now to show them. I'm quite sure they don't want to watch any of
True. That's kids, though, isn't it? Now, Colin, being an athlete, I have to just ask you, in college, is it like what the TV shows, show you? Because obviously, we've got Netflix, and I'm not sure if you've seen the show Last Chance U, but it's about college athletes and trying to get them through and get their grades up to be able to, to pass and to be able to continue with the school. Is it like that in real life? Do they put a lot of effort into getting you through school?
Well, let me first say that I want to reiterate. I went to an academic school, not necessarily an athletic school. And I got to give credit to my wrestling coach, Paul Cotton. One of the first things he said was, "You're here to graduate." That's one of the first things he said. And he really pushed us to graduate, graduate, graduate. I know in a lot of the major universities, the athletic students, the students who play sports, they go there to play sports, not to graduate. But in Howard, it's really about graduating. So I always, think back to him saying, "You're here to graduate." And I graduated in 4 years, which I'm very proud of. And if I look at my freshman year, there were probably six of us, 6 or 7 on scholarship. And of those 6 or 7, I want to say 4 or 5 of us actually graduated on time. And that's tremendous. Now, I will say this, that, and I haven't not watched the show you talked about, but being a collegiate athlete is not fun because you are there to play sports.
Mm.
And if you get injured, your scholarship is gone. So I can tell you, my transition from loving wrestling, by the time I was a junior, I did not like wrestling whatsoever
Wow.
because because that's what you're there for. And luckily, my school was a little different, but I know a lot of collegiate athletes who had a different experience, and the coach will tell you, if you don't perform, your scholarship is gone. I remember at the end of every wrestling season, you had your meeting with the coach, and in that meeting, he would tell you how much money you're getting for the next year.
Oh,
Okay.
wow.
Yeah, oh yeah. And that was a very stressful. If you did not perform or if you were late for practice, you knew your money was going to be taken away from you. So it's not. It's people talk about modern day slavery. Um, if you think about what slavery was a lot of plantations in the South getting free labor off of the people who they owned. If you look at what happened in including sports, you have a lot of universities getting paid for what these players are doing. For example, players didn't get paid for their jerseys. You have LeBron James didn't go to college, right? But let's say who's a good James Harden. Okay, James Harden went to college. His jersey when he was in college, he didn't get money for that. his jersey could sell thousands of jerseys, no money from it. So there's this thing about still how collegiate sports are likened to slavery. I'm not going to go that far because these athletes are getting opportunity to graduate and get education. But I will say this, that being a athlete in college is not a fun thing, especially in a major school, because you're there not to get an education. You're there to play sports. Luckily, in my university, you're there first to get an education, then play sports.
Yeah, because that sounds tough. It's, I suppose, we wouldn't go as far as saying slavery, but maybe some exploitation, going on. But to be able to go through that, I think is absolutely amazing, and I think it's testament to your character. And I think as well, you mentioned to me that as a teenager you were in quite a bad financial situation, and as you've gone through your life you've become financially independent. So do you think it's sort of those struggles that you've had to go through which has forced you to keep going into to look for those successes?
Yeah, I do think so. I do think so, and I think just watching what my father went through during some of his financial struggles, especially my last year in high school, and to be honest with you, being scared and saying, I don't want this to happen to me. I think based on trying to avoid that, it made me really say, okay, well, if I want to avoid this situation, what must I do? And I was always, and I guess it's a son of being, it's being the son of Jamaican parents. Jamaican fathers are very cheap. Okay. So I think I had my first pair of Nikes in college. So
Wow.
I never really had, but that's important because I never had a taste for flashy items, which meant that I'm okay putting money away in the bank. So I was always worried about tomorrow, tomorrow, tomorrow. Let me plan for tomorrow. And by doing that, and especially when I moved here to China and the cost of living is lower, I was able to save more money, which allowed me then to have the opportunity to start my business.
So let's talk about China. So how long have you been in China and why did you go?
So I've been in China I arrived here December 31st, 2008. So 12 years, going on 13 years now. I've had gray hair for a long time, but I had less gray hair back then. I was 34 when I came to China, and I felt so old because I arrived in Shenzhen, and Shenzhen was a new city. Literally, the city was 30 years old when I got there. So it was very, very young. And I was at 34, an old guy in Shenzhen. In Shanghai, it's different. But Shenzhen, I was an old guy. And I came to China because I wanted to have more international experience. As I told you, my family's from Jamaica and Canada. And growing up in the US, I knew that there was something different as far as culture. And I went with a company, IBM, who could give me more of, who could give me an opportunity to get more experience abroad. And they said, okay, Colin, you're going to China. And I said, yes, I am.
Wow.
Yeah,
Most people
yeah.
would have gone, no, I'm not.
Well, you know what? I mean, back then, I was really just trying, wherever they told me I was going to go. And, being growing up in the U.S., being black, you see so much news on TV about people of color, and it's not accurate. So what I saw about China, what I saw about Africa, what I saw about Europe, I knew wasn't accurate. I knew that I had to go there to find out what is this real situation. So I was very open to learning a new culture and learning for myself firsthand.
So tell me about the experience of arriving in Shenzhen. What went through your mind? You're in a completely different country, and what do you think?
Well, why can't people speak English? Because that was I had never I traveled before, but everywhere I traveled, you could speak English. So I figured, and this is my own ignorance. Let me just first say that I figured, and before I came to China, I'd already been to Africa. And Africa, I can speak English, and people understand what I'm saying. Yada yada yada. When I went to when I arrived in China, and when I say that people couldn't speak English, I mean from the very first moment I arrived in the airport, and I'm trying to talk to people, and it's just no. It's no. It's just no. And it showed me that, wow, we because kung fu theater, right? Kung fu theater, they spoke English, even though it was dubbed. But it just didn't occur to me that people really, really, really didn't speak English, and I had to learn very quickly how to talk with my hands. I had to learn very quickly. So Chrissy, I'll ask you: if you go to a country where you can't speak a language, what is the most important question or the thing you want to be able to say in their language?
Oh, goodness. I don't know. I'd have so many questions.
Where's the
Um,
bathroom?
yeah, true. That's probably the first thing that you say when you arrive at the airport. Yeah. So, how do you
Where?
say that with your hands?
Well, okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. That one you got a point. You got a point. You got a point. That one you got a point, right? You got a point to your crotch. But you learn very quickly how to communicate, and I did that. But one thing that I realized, people in China were very eager to learn more about the West, learn more about our culture, learn more about you. And luckily, being black and going there, I thought there'd be the same sort of hesitation that you find in the West. But because of two MJs, Michael Jackson and Michael Jordan, they really, really embrace people of color. They love Michael Jackson and they love Michael Jordan and Kobe.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So, how long did it take you to learn the language?
Well, I'm still learning. Um, I'm still learning, and the challenge is after. Well, if you think about your who you naturally spend time with in China, people want to improve their English. So when they're with you, they want to talk English. So trying to improve your Mandarin, my Mandarin, is very hard in Shanghai because there's so much English. I've been here, as I mentioned, 12, 13 years, and when I go outside, I speak Mandarin in stores, in restaurants, transportation. If I'm spending time with friends and family, it's more English. So I think in Shenzhen, which is in the south of China, it took me about a few months to learn the basics, and then about a year or two to be able to have what I call survival Mandarin. Right, put me anywhere I can. Where's the bathroom? How much does it cost? This, that, and the other. So I'm okay there, but going to the next level, I'm not there yet. But the challenge is you don't really have to have it now because wherever you go, people speak English.
So, do you think that sort of makes people less inclined to learn about the culture and everything if they don't have to, I suppose, speak the language and they're more embracing, Western culture over there?
Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely do. I think that you have a lot of foreigners or expatriates who come to China and live in that bubble. And that bubble is the kids may go to an international school, English. They may be here on a 2-year work contract. In their company, they speak English. When they leave work, they spend time with people, other foreigners, and they don't really embrace the culture. And you find that a lot. I always tell, not tell people, but I always ask foreigners who are here, how many Chinese friends do you have? And they don't have a lot at all, at all. And it's it's interesting because if I ask some of my black friends how many Chinese friends, they have a lot.
Wow.
And I think it's because people who are minorities in their country are more open to minorities. They more have a desire. But if you're the majority in your country and you come here, you want to spend time. I mean, you have that the mentality. I'm the majority. I want to spend time with people who look and talk like me. And you're not that open to learning new things, new culture and whatnot. So I have seen that, and it's a shame because the culture here is just so diverse, and people here really want to learn more about you and who you are. And I can say this: I have more friends now from Europe and Africa than I've ever had in my life. Ever had in my
Wow,
life. Yeah.
that, that's awesome. So you obviously like it there because, you've been there for 12, 13 years. So what keeps you in China?
um, to be honest,
100% honest.
I feel, when I walk down the street here and I see the policeman, I have no fear. I know
Wow.
that in the US, it's not like that. I don't want, right now, and I have a little, my son is a year and a half, and he's half black, half Chinese, and I feel very safe for him here. I don't want to go back right now to the US because I don't want to die, to be honest with you. And it may sound a little sad, but it's absolute truth. The U.S. is not the safest place for people of African descent. And in China, foreigners are treated very, very well. So there's no reason for me to really be trying to go back to the U.S. right now.
So do you think the US has got worse since you've left, or do you think it's getting better? It was always bad, but it might be getting a little bit better. What's your take?
Whew. So in back in 2008, I remember literally having tears run down my face when Obama was president elect, won the election, because I was like, I never thought in my life I would ever see that, and I was very happy. And the next 8 years, I thought things were going to get better. Um, then we had a change in presidency, to Mr. Donald Trump, or President Trump, and things got worse. And when I say things got worse, I mean people got bold. So if there was going to be some bias or some prejudice, you may not see it. People have those thoughts, but you may not see it. However, when Trump got into office, certain people became very bold and outwardly were acting a certain way. So I think when you say have things gotten worse, I think things were always the same way until about 4 years ago. Things got worse because people were bold and said, you know what? If I feel this way, I'm going to let it be known. So I do feel things have gotten worse, and I hope that now things will get better. I'm not so sure that will happen just due to the nature of um, what the country is trying to do. I'm not sure it'll get better, but I do know that there's more of an allyship between all people, regardless of what color you are. There are more allies. If you think about after George Floyd, the global protests that took place, people of color were not the majority of people protesting. It was all races. And I think that is one of the tremendous things that have happened in the last year, which you didn't see before. Before, you just saw people of color protesting, but now they're more allies. So I think that things will get better. I hope so. I hope they get better.
So what's your take on the Capitol riots?
I have no take on the Capitol riots. I think we all know what happened. Uh, the president said, "Come fight," and his soldiers came and fought. That was it. My view on it is, I was very surprised that watching it, how easy it was for the Caucasian rioters to do that, and how nobody, well, one person got shot and people died, but how there were no, had the rioters been black, it would have been something very, very different. And there is no discussion of whether that's true or not. Had those rioters been black, there would have been a different reaction on ground and after. So it goes. So for a lot. But again, you asked me earlier a question, and being black, it's just we're used to this BS, right? So it's not like this is new.
Mm.
But that was a very interesting scenario where you saw how, based on the president's soldiers, they were able to get away with a lot of things.
Yeah, and I think, obviously you've experienced it, your entire life, and black people and people of color have it as well, and they sort of, know how to sort of deal with it, and it's normal day life for them. But I think one thing it's shown, I think, is the extremist views are becoming, I think, a little bit rarer, because the worse that they behave, the more a wider population get together and say no. Like, as you said, the Black Lives Matter protests and things like that, there was, a lot more nationalities, I suppose, coming together than there probably would have been before. So do you think that that's a little bit of a positive?
No, no,
No?
no, no, and not at all. Because when I see that, I see, now I'm speaking from the U.S. mindset.
Mm-hmm.
I see more from that, more people, more Caucasians in the U.S. watching that and saying, "Damn right,"
Oh,
saying,
okay.
saying, "Yeah, protest, do it." Getting more empowered by that, because again, they feel this is our country. Oh, you our country, right? It's our country, right? Even though everybody's immigrants in the U.S., this is our country. We have our gun laws. Yeah, I mean, these are our rights. So more people got empowered by that, and I think that's the whole reason. I mean, look, come on, let's be real. Trump didn't get, he didn't get as far as being president. They tried to, he didn't get impeached, right? He's going to run again in 4 years, and he's going to have more votes in 4 years than he had now. So this is just the beginning. So no, no, I think that was a tremendous rallying cry. And look, fast forward 2 years, when he starts his campaign, he's going to say, "Do you see what we did with the Capitol a few years ago? We let's go bigger and harder and, next time." So no, no, no. I think people who believe in Trump, and don't forget, half the country minus a few percent voted for Trump again. So he had a lot of people who felt what happened was okay. So no, I don't think that people look at this and say, "Oh wow, let's build a coalition." No, I think people are really empowered by what happened.
That's scary. It's scary to think
Yeah.
that, potentially could get a lot worse. It's, because obviously Australia, we get news from around the world, and sort of sitting on the sidelines, it makes you wonder what actually goes through these people's minds. Because to me, I think they're extremists either way. If you're going to go to that sort of level of anger and violence with complete strangers, it's crazy to me. But what's your take on China and American relations and the racial harmony between those two countries?
Well, I think from a personal standpoint, not from a trade standpoint, not from a government standpoint, I think on a day-to-day basis, um, China Chinese people fully embrace people from all countries. There is a tremendous desire to learn culture. It's interesting. I have some Chinese friends that speak perfect German,
Wow.
speak perfect French, and I remember first hearing them speak the languages. I'm like, wow, I've never imagined somebody from China could speak those languages. But if you go to the U.S., you have people who can speak all these languages. So it opened my eyes and saying, um, people are people, culture is culture, and I can say on a daily basis, even in my neighborhood here, people are very, very, very friendly. Rarely, have I ever experienced anybody who is being aggressive towards me based on my color or country of origin? Very, very rarely. So I know that the U.S. and China, on a trade standpoint, on a GDP standpoint, there may be some things there, but on a people, people to people, no, it's really, really full of embrace. Now, I think it's because again, people here in China they have a thirst for Western knowledge, Western experience. People want to learn more about the U.S., learn more about Europe. They want to go to Europe. They want to go to the U.S. They want to travel. They want to buy products from these countries. So I think that's a big part of it also because China for so many years has been closed off and they weren't able to buy products and learn about the West. So I think they have a very huge appetite for things from the West.
And I suppose, speaking about learning, you've been helping people through COVID with some life coaching that you run through your own program. So, can you tell me a bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're actually celebrating, I said 1 year anniversary of COVID, right? But I don't know if that's anything to celebrate. But about a year ago, in late January, is when COVID really hit China hard. And a lot of my clients at the time wanted to shift from their career coaching, from their personal development coaching, and move more into getting support during the COVID times. And a year ago, we didn't have all this COVID experience, meaning we still didn't know what was going to happen. And COVID was really only in China at that point. Myself and some other life coaches here, we got together and we said, what can we do? Because we know that, in China, there are still people who deliver food, who work in restaurants, who work in the stores, work in hospitals, who are still having to work. And then overnight, COVID went to Europe. I think it was Italy, went to
Yep.
Europe, and then went to the US. And people found that this is a global pandemic. And again, you had your first line workers. And as life coaches, we are not first line workers whatsoever. But we said, what can we do to help people who are suffering at home? Because now there are more dynamics in your home due to COVID. And if you had any sort of life issue, COVID didn't bring you any new life issues. It made your existing life issues bigger. If your relationship had cracks, COVID would put weight on that crack. So we really got together and said, what can we do to help people at home? And I'm very proud to say that over a 30-day period from April to May or March to April, we made 30 videos, one video literally every day to help people through COVID. And we called ourselves the COVID coaches. And we had a lot of people who watched the video and gave us feedback and said, thank you for helping us with these messages. But I'll tell you, Christy, one thing we noticed or we learned was there's no such thing as COVID coaching. It's really just life coaching. And again, because everything you experience is just a life issue that's being laid bare. So it was a tremendous opportunity for us to really showcase, I say showcase our talents, but more importantly, for us to help people. And the beautiful thing is, these videos exist online. So people can watch those anytime to really learn how to get through some aspect of COVID. We have a relationship coach. We have coach talking about happiness, relationships, how to have a mission during COVID. So a lot of different topics discussed.
So, what was your personal experience, I suppose, with COVID and with the actual virus being in China and being so rampant? Was it a scary time for you?
Well, okay, so it was the first part was frustration because when COVID hit, it was during China's New Year. I live in Shanghai, which is a small city of 20 million people. and
Almost the whole population of
Oh, I'm
Australia.
sure, you're right. So we were actually in my wife's hometown, and she is from the countryside, and I mean countryside. And what do I mean when I say countryside? What I mean is the food we have for dinner in the countryside is the food that you grow in the backyard, and the food that walks around in the backyard, meaning the cows, the chickens, everything is in the backyard. Very, very country. And I loved it. I loved it. I love being out of the city. And overnight, COVID came, and we had to scramble back to Shanghai because we did not want to get stuck um, in a small town. So my first thing was I'm frustrated because I needed time outside of the big city. So I wasn't happy being back home. But my wife very quickly reminded me or taught me that my priority must be on making sure my family is safe. So my son at the time was, gosh, about 9 months, not no 8 months old, eight
Oh,
months.
wow.
Yeah, very, 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 very young. And every day, the first 2 weeks of COVID in China was more of how many people died yesterday and how many they think will die today. So it was a very, very tough time. And the only thing we could do here was to make sure that in our household we have a process for when I go outside and get food or whatnot. When I come back in, how to make sure that I'm not bringing the COVID into the house. And if I am, how can I make sure I'm disinfecting myself that first one meter in the house. So it was very much just being very protective of my family and whatnot. But it was a very, very tough time. I would say that first 2 3 weeks. And my wife had a lot of anxiety because again she was watching the news and just hearing how many people are dying each and every day. So it was a very tough time.
Yeah, it's really scary, and I know it was, bad enough in Australia, and we haven't really had that many cases or deaths, definitely compared to the rest of the world. But watching the case numbers and the deaths
Mhm.
overseas was, quite troubling. But you've got a really healthy mindset, and you credit that to a healthy lifestyle and exercise. And you mentioned to me that on your birthday each year you run your age in miles. So tell us a little bit about that healthy mindset and your healthy lifestyle and how that actually helps you. And I really want to know about running those miles on your birthday, because most people are eating, cake and celebrating on their birthday, and you, dare I say it, are sort of punishing yourself. So tell me why and how much that helps you.
Yeah. So it's interesting you say a healthy mindset. And it's interesting because I don't look at it as a healthy mindset or lifestyle. I look at it as just being me. And that's important because at some point we have to build routines or habits. And once we build a habit or routine, it doesn't become a routine anymore. It becomes who you are. So years ago, gosh, probably 10 years ago, I decided I wanted to have a new tough ritual. I was in China. I think I was 37 and or 36. And I said, I want to have something that I have a yearly challenge that I want to do. And I was doing a lot of running back then. And I said, let me run my age in miles on my birthday. And it is August. This is August, and this is August, right? And August is very, very hot and humid in China. So it was very, very tough. But the first year, I remember I had a lot of my friends who helped me in different parts of it. And I had a friend who was running in basketball shoes. I remember that because he wasn't a runner, but he was there to support me. And I really appreciate that because it just showed that people will support you if you really are doing something that you think is life changing. And the beautiful thing about this challenge was it gets harder every year. but every year you do it, you know you can do it. So it's not about can I do it? It's more about how long will it take, how much will it hurt. And Christy, I'm going to tell you, it is not fun. This year I ran, I want to say 78 kilometers,
That's
right?
a massive.
Yeah, and it was not fun. There was nothing. There was nothing about it fun. But the one thing I knew I would finish because I've done it. I've done it every year except 2 years because I was injured. But I knew I would finish. But this was the first year I did it in 24 hours. Well, first year in about 5 years, I did it in 24 hours. My goal is to do it on my birthday, the entire thing, and it hurt. It wasn't fun, but I did get it done. And my wife is an athlete also. She's a 100K runner, and she'll tell me, yeah, you ran a lot, but it's only 75 kg. It's not 100K, right? and she'll say she did hers in one time. So what I would do is I will run like 30 kilometers and take a couple hours break and come back out. I would do it throughout the day. So she's always telling me, until I run it in one setting, it's not that important. But for me, it's this activity motivates me for the year because I know that if I can get through this, which I know I can, then I can get through so many other things because when you think about this, it's so much not the physical, it's the mental. So, Christy, if you know tomorrow you're going to go through something that's going to break you down physically, emotionally, mentally, how do you prepare for that? And how do you do it every year? So, when I do this, it's not the physical part, it's the mental part, and it makes me stronger and tougher for the entire year.
Yes, it must give you such a sense of accomplishment that sort of keeps with you for the rest of the year. But how do you build up to doing it again? Like, do you go, oh God, now I'm getting 1 year older and I've got to do another mile?
No, not at all. Not at all. No, it's more of I did it before, so I know I can do it again. Absolutely. And people always say, "Yeah, Colin. So when you're 50 or 60, are you going to keep doing it?" And I'm like, "Man, of course I am. I might not do it in one day. Maybe it takes me 2 days, but I'm absolutely, excuse me, absolutely going to do it." I mean, I love. First of all, I am no stranger to doing tough physical things. I've run the Great Wall Marathon 3 times, so I'm very, I love pushing my body. And the only issue I have is as I'm getting older, I can't push it as much and feel good. It hurts. It really, really hurts. It really, really hurts. It's really, really not fun. Whereas years ago, I could run through a brick wall and be fine. Now, I trip over a Q-tip and I'm hurt for 2 days. I'm hurt for 2 days. So, yeah. So just being an older athlete, it's something that yeah, something I'm getting used to.
Now, look, with age, I suppose, comes a bit of wisdom. And my last question to you, Colin, is going to sort of tap into a bit of that. So I'd like to know, what would you do differently if only you knew?
Um, I would put all my money in Bitcoin 10 years ago.
I think that's the best answer I've had. That's awesome.
But you know what? Honestly, we always ask ourselves, what if we go back in time? What would we do different? The concern is, I love. You know what? I love my wife. My son is a year and a half, and even though he's, learning how to open doors and make noise and stuff like that, I love him, right? And I say that because if I do anything different, maybe it changes my life, right? And I would not, I would not do anything different because everything I've done has got me where I am today. Um, I think if I gave my son advice, right? What advice would I give my son? Golly, Chrissy, let me tell you something. I don't know what advice I'd give him, because one of the things is, I know that growing up in my household, and you see this a lot here in China as well, parents want to somewhat control their kids' future, and I would just tell my son, be who you are. And I have something here, on lessons learned in life, right? Lean into who you are. Well, a lot of times we think we must change who we are to for certain reasons. No, lean in. When I coach my clients, and I have a client who said, you know what, she has a way of procrastinating. She always does things at the last minute. She's very successful, but she feels that, you know what, maybe if I didn't wait till last minute, I could be more successful. And I told her, I said, maybe that's who you are. Lean into it. You don't always have to change things, because if your life is okay, then let it be okay. So I wouldn't give my son advice yet. I would not go back and change anything in my life, because I'd be worried that it would change the present. But I want to tell people, if you're being authentic to yourself, lean in. If you're an a-hole, be an a-hole. If you're somebody who is very, very conscious about being responsible in the world, then be that person. But you don't always have to change who you are. Be who you are. Okay? Be who you are, and be comfortable with who you are.
Such fantastic insight, Colin. And I think, you have definitely shown, that people can overcome adversity and change and adapt and learn new cultures and be able to fit right in wherever you are across the world. So I really thank you for joining me today. If you'd like to know more about Colin, I'll have links to all his details on my website, ifonlyouknewpodcast.com.au. And don't forget to leave us a rating and review. Thanks, Colin.
Thank you for having me, Christy. It's been a very good morning conversation.
Thank you.